Please welcome to the stage Andy Mendelsohn.
Okay. Wow, good crowd. Thanks for coming, and we're very excited to be here today in Vegas and give you an update on what we're doing with database. And we're going to plug later on. Juan Luis is going to give a really good keynote at 4 o'clock today that all of you are going to want to go to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about database strategy, what we're doing with Multicloud. That was a big excitement. I'm sure you heard the announcement yesterday about partnership with Amazon. And talk a little bit about what's new. And what I'm going to do a little different this year is I'm going to bring out some customers. And we like putting up slides and say, oh, Oracle's great, it does this and that. Well, this year we're going to have some customers, and they can tell you what they're doing with Oracle, with our databases on-prem, databases in the cloud, all kinds of stuff they're up to. So let's get rolling. Okay, so we've been putting this up for a few years now, and the big message I'm trying to get out to everybody is, Oracle is really known for having a great operational database. We can do all kinds of workloads. However, we're not always known as being the easiest to build applications against. And so we are trying to move our focus in the database organization as we move to this, we're journeying to this new world of cloud, where Oracle's taking over the operations of databases for you. We're trying to make sure your developers, not just your operations people, but also your developers now have a really great experience and are very productive working with the Oracle database. So, and that's going to be a big focus of what Juan talks about at 4 also, that we want to make sure it's easy to develop, and actually Juan's going to talk about using generative AI to generate database applications. So it's a really exciting time for database developers. Okay, so let's move on. My clicker is not doing anything. Okay. So how are we delivering on this vision? Well, we have 2 main elements. I'll just put the second one up too. We have our Converged database strategy, which is just our standard database software. And I like to emphasize over and over again, we have one version of our software. We use it. We deliver it to customers on premises. We deliver it to customers on the cloud. Exactly the same, 100%. And so all the innovations we're working on, like 23AI, vector search, all that stuff is going to end up on-prem as well. So all the innovation we do, of course, autonomous database, the second thing we're working on is a little different, right? This is a fully managed cloud service. You don't get that if you're just running the database yourself on premises. So a lot of innovation also goes into how we make the database self-managing and running, and there's the amount of work we do to just monitor the systems, detect issues, automatically fix them without anybody knowing about it is pretty incredible. But that's something you can experience when you use autonomous on the cloud or at cloud at customer. Okay, so I always like to sort of compare what we're doing to what the other guys are doing. And the big thing that some customers were complaining to me the other day is like, we have this problem. There are copies of your data all over the place, sometimes hundreds of copies. One of the big things with Oracle database is this thing we call Converged database. So when you are building a database application with the Oracle database, it's like a Swiss Army knife. It's got all this capability in the database for doing transactions, for doing analytics, for doing graph analytics, for doing JSON document management. It's all there. So if you're a developer and you want to build something, all that you need is going to be right there for you. We call that a Converged database. The other guys, and this is our friends at Amazon, we give an example of them, they pride themselves on the fact that to do applications on Amazon, you want to use lots of different databases, data management systems, because no one can actually do what you need. And so there, copies of data are rampant. You have to move data from one service to another to get your job done. Of course, as a developer, it's really complicated. From a security standpoint, it's a complete disaster, right? Anytime you make a copy of the data, you've increased the potential that some hacker is going to get in and get a copy of that, and it's going to end up, on the internet, displaying all the private information you've got. So this is really a serious thing. It's not just like Oracle talking about, Converged. It's cool, lots of features. It actually is a big business issue that, from availability standpoint, the more you're moving data around to lots of different systems, the more any one system is going to go down and take you down, take your application down. It's a big security problem, and security is now a huge issue, as you all know, ransomware, et cetera. So this is a big deal. Okay, let's move on. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is our first customer. So you've all heard of the New York Stock Exchange. They're a pretty well-known brand. And we're going to have Ajit Singh come out. And Ajit's been at New York Stock Exchange for a long time. And he's going to talk to you about what they're doing with their Oracle database. Hey, Ajit.
Hi, Eddie.
Hey, thanks for coming. So Ajit, why don't you talk about what New York Stock Exchange does in your business beyond just the stock trading everybody knows about?
So New York Stock Exchange, as you all very well aware, has 5 equity markets and 2 options markets. So, and we do about $33 trillion of worth of transactions every year. And on a daily basis, we do about 500 billion to a trillion data transactions daily. But New York Stock Exchange is part of a larger umbrella, Intercontinental Exchange. And that is very deep into energy trading. So for example, when you look at Brent oil futures, Abu Dhabi, Murban oil futures, derivatives trading and clearing operations in Europe, those systems or those transactions on the buy and the sell side happen on our platforms. And Intercontinental Exchange has other businesses on the data side. For example, we are a big provider of fixed income data to the financial industry. We get data from about 140 countries. And we play a very key role in the financial industry world over in digitizing the financial information in the prospectuses of fixed income securities and provide that data to the industry. And lastly, in the big segment where we are making big forays into is mortgage technology. So as you refinance a house or buy a new house, you are seeing a transformation that is occurring within the industry where you're seeing, instead of signing reams of paper, you're seeing all of that being done electronically. Very similar to the digitization that we do on the fixed income side, where we are taking security information and digitizing it. So similarly, on the mortgage side, we're doing the same thing and providing the underlying infrastructure and services that a lot of the financial institutions and mortgage brokers, et cetera, are using.
Wow, who would have thought New York Stock Exchange is in the mortgage business? That's interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us about the infrastructure you use to run all these systems, especially obviously about what you do with all your Oracle databases.
Yeah, so we've been partners with Oracle for over 30 years. A lot of our core transactional, high-end transactional systems run on Oracle Exadata. We use Oracle RAC extensively. All the features that you might have heard over the last 20, 30 years, whether it's partitioning, active data guard, security features within the database, maximum availability architecture. So we use all of that to basically provide the foundation for data processing within the company. And some of the newer features, right? For example, we started using JSON within the database in 2016, which is part of the Converged strategy that Oracle has been undertaking. So in the fixed income space, The fixed income instrument typically have a few thousand attributes, and schema flexibility that JSON provides, and being able to store and process a few thousand attributes related to securities, JSON within the Oracle database is a very good solution for us.
Great. And I know you've been looking at 23AI a bit. You want to tell us what you're seeing so far?
Yeah, so some of the features on 23AI, we are looking particularly at true cache and vector AI search. I see true cache as a means to scale these data processing systems even further, get better performance, and also to reduce cost for our data processing needs. And vector AI, especially in the security search, we have a lot of customer-facing applications where customers are querying, say, various financial instruments in some application. And in the back end, we're thinking that using vector AI to train the models on the security data will provide a better outcome for our customers.
And I heard you were looking at the JSON data type as well.
Yeah, we are looking at JSON data type. We have done some POC on using the JSON data type, and we had some excellent results. So in the course of the coming months, we look to do some extensive testing on JSON data type. And we are a big customer of Exadata for scale, performance. We also use ZDLRA extensively. Some of our databases are running into hundreds of terabytes. So when you operate at that kind of scale, you need to have scalability platforms like Exadata and ZDLRA to be able to meet the needs of the business.
Okay, thank you very much, Ajit.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move to the cloud. And of course, there are two major services. As you look at our database cloud services, there are two major ones you're going to be looking at using. The first one is called Exadata Database Service. And Exadata Database Service basically gives you an experience very similar to on-prem. We manage the Exadatas for you. You manage the databases. And so a lot of our customers who just have been, have the database engineers, they have tuned applications they've been working on for 20 years. A lot of them gravitate to this service because it feels a lot like what they're used to on-prem. They still have full control over databases, patching, everything. Now, as a foundation for Autonomous, we have the Exadata infrastructure there. But then Autonomous adds a fully managed database service on top of that. So Autonomous is our modern cloud-native, fully managed service. It takes the Exadata cloud service infrastructure, and then we implement all the best practices for high availability and security, and give that to you at the push of a button. You don't need sophisticated engineers anymore to figure out how to deploy rack clusters on Exadatas with multi-tenancy and MAA and all that kind of stuff. It's just there at the push of a button. And then it also has this thing we're calling a converged data management platform, and I'll go into that a little bit on the next slide. But again, it's this whole notion of like, why do you want to keep copying your data from one place to another? Why don't you want to just keep it all in one service and make it much more secure, much more manageable? And then that gives you the big benefits of a fully managed cloud service: low total cost of ownership, lots lower labor costs, high value. And then on the cloud, we have, it's a pay-as-you-go model. So it's a much more economical way of running systems, because a lot of the time your systems are not fully used. A lot of times they're less used. You shouldn't have to pay huge amounts of money for less used time periods. Okay. And this is what I talked about earlier. So we have this notion of a converged data management platform. So, the foundation, of course, is our converged database software, and that we talked about a little earlier. But on top of that, we have a lot of stuff that's just there in that one service. We have Apex for application development. Apex is becoming increasingly popular among the customers for building applications. And inside Oracle, we are now using Apex for building a lot of our SaaS applications. It turns out, developers can be 10 times more productive. That's what they're going to do instead of writing code the old-fashioned way. Then beyond SQL, of course, our Converged database software is an SQL, an open standard SQL API experience that customers really like. But there are other standards like REST. The Mongo API is not a standard, but it's something that's for the JSON developers has become a very sort of an ad hoc kind of standard that people like in that space. We're offering that as well. And then we have a whole bunch of built-in tooling that traditionally, like if you go to Amazon or other clouds, you're going to find these are in other services that you have to integrate with the database. So for example, we have data catalog that'll federate with other data catalogs in the cloud. We have ETL service, transformation service, right built into Autonomous Database. Again, reduce data copying by doing ELT right in your database. We have notebooks for your data scientists. We have machine learning, again, for your data scientists right in the database. And graph analytics, a whole bunch of other capabilities. So again, the notion is let's try to keep everything there. If possible, avoid copying to other services, avoid the security risk and availability risk of doing that sort of thing. Okay. And then, I mentioned inside Oracle, not only are we building SaaS applications now on the Oracle database, we're building it on, we're deploying them on our cloud using our Autonomous Database. And this is not the way it always was. When we first went to cloud, pretty much all of our apps were running on Exadata Database Cloud Service for the same reason that a lot of you may choose that, because the DBAs who are running those applications on-prem just preferred the experience of going first to Exadata directly and then managing the databases the old-fashioned way. But as we're moving forward, we have a top-down movement now where every one of our SaaS applications is moving to autonomous. And today, we have sort of an update here. Our industries business units have 79 of their cloud services now on autonomous, and everything else is going to autonomous if it's not there today. NetSuite, which is our low-end application suite, has natively built their next generation of NetSuite from day one, is running on autonomous today. The classic version of NetSuite is in the process of moving all the customers to autonomous as well. And then Fusion, our big enterprise-class SaaS applications for ERP, supply chain management, et cetera, are in process to move everything to autonomous early next year, but they're already today running some of their applications on autonomous. So, we, as we say, eat our own dog food at Oracle. We are proving this stuff works, every day inside Oracle. The other really interesting and somewhat surprising thing is our cloud, as you might expect, has tons of Oracle databases for managing all the data about what's going on in the cloud. And over the last year or so, all those databases have been moving to autonomous as well. So when you use our cloud behind the scenes, pretty much everything you're doing there is also hitting an autonomous database. And so when we build out a new data center, like one of the first things we have to do is get autonomous database up and running, because everything in OCI in our cloud infrastructure depends on it. And so it's a really critical service for our cloud as well. Okay, and then lots of customers run autonomous, and one of the cool things is I'm going to have one of them come up on stage and talk about what they're doing with database. And actually, two customers are going to talk about autonomous database today. So we'll get to that eventually. So before we get to the customers, Multicloud. You heard all the excitement yesterday. We have been talking about how we want to make our database cloud services available on all the clouds. Larry Ellison has been talking about this for a couple years. We kicked this off about 1.5 years ago with Microsoft around Azure, and we made our database cloud services and a bunch of other services like Golden Gate, Zero Data Loss Recovery Service, et cetera, available on Azure. And then a few months ago, we announced we're doing the same thing with Google. And Google is gone live already today. And so Google and Microsoft are now like in a head-to-head competition about like who can have the most Oracle database-related cloud services up and running, the most data centers, et cetera. And then yesterday, of course, we announced Amazon. And that is it now for, that's 90% of the cloud market now. And so that means our Oracle database, again, is going to be available like where you want it. If you guys are using Amazon, fine. Our database cloud services will be there, et cetera. And for me, if you go back 30 years at Oracle, this is getting back to our core DNA that we've had in the database group for years. One of our big values from the beginning of time was like, we will run our database software on any operating system platform, any hardware platform you want to use, we'll be there. And so in the era of cloud, that translates to, yeah, we need to have our database cloud services available on every major cloud that you want to use. We want to be where you are, okay? So this is a really important strategy for our database business. This slide, just shows our cloud map. And this is a pretty impressive infrastructure we've got on the public clouds and others. So the interesting thing here to look at is not just commercial reasons that you think about, but we have all sorts of other regions. We have 40+ commercial regions. We have these regions that are for like the EU sovereign cloud regions for the European Union. We have government regions. We have dedicated regions, which are basically our cloud running inside a customer data center. And one of the customers I have on stage is doing that. So we'll talk about that. And beyond that, of course, we have the multi-cloud I just talked about. And the big thing from a business standpoint that lots of customers are excited about is, often their senior executives made some deal with the guy who's running, Amazon or Google, whatever, and they said, this is great. We're getting a huge discount. Let's get, hundreds of millions of dollars of credits to run on Amazon or Google, whatever it is. We got a huge discount. It's a great deal. And then they do these deals without talking to any of the IT people. And the IT people are told, hey, go spend this money. And it's like, well, we can't spend this money. We have all these Oracle databases, and their Oracle database cloud services aren't available on these clouds. And so the big business thing that we've arranged here is that if you've done this, now you have a way of spending those cloud credits or basically committed spend you've made, often at your senior executive level. You can now spend that on Oracle databases. So Oracle databases are now, thumbs up. Your CFO is happy. This is great. You don't have to get off Oracle databases. You can run them now on Amazon or wherever they've done the committed spend. So that's a big part of why this is a really powerful partnership. Beyond that, of course, we're doing technical integration with the clouds. We talk about getting all the service metrics, events logged to the partner clouds metrics infrastructure. We integrate with the security infrastructure. The billing is all done by us, but then we send the bills to Microsoft or Amazon, whoever is going to give you the ultimate bill on the other clouds. And we make the discounts we have available on Oracle Cloud for our on-prem customers. Our on-prem customers are paying support. As you move to cloud, we have this thing called support rewards, so you get credit for your support spend on-prem now in the cloud. We have this thing called bring your own license that also works, where you can get a ULA on-prem, and all those licenses can be used in the cloud to get very low cost access to the database cloud services. And here we have the summary of where we are in the regions. We got 7 regions on Azure with 24 more planned. That's a lot. That's 31 regions planned on Azure alone. Google has 4. They're planning to do at least 14 more. And like I said, Google and Azure are duking it out to see who can have the most cloud regions, the most services available. It's really exciting. We just did the Amazon announcement. Obviously, that was just announced today. We have no cloud regions there yet. But I think in the announcement, they talked about having a goal of getting at least 1 live by the end of the year. So we're really excited about this. We're back to the good old days of Oracle being available everywhere you want it to be. So this is really cool. Okay. And this you know, there are a lot more dots on the map here when you add these regions there, but the bottom line is Oracle is a real hyperscaler. We are everywhere you want to be in the cloud, plus we have all kinds of variants where we can run our cloud in your data centers if that's something of interest. We can do sovereign clouds, and now we can run in other vendor cloud regions as well. So this is really a great development. And we're going to bring out one of our big cloud customers, Vodafone. So Martin, Armin, come on out. Martin.
Hi, thanks for having us. Good to see you.
Armand.
Thank you.
Okay. So these guys are from Vodafone, and I know in North America you probably don't know a lot about Vodafone, so I thought let's get a little education about the Vodafone business.
Absolutely right. So Vodafone is a large telco operator. So we have more than 330 million customers. We are mainly operating out of Europe and Africa. And we have our large footprints together with 46 partner markets, which we have as well. And we operate in Europe and Africa with 15. So pretty large in terms of estate and complexity, let me say.
Yeah, so how many Oracle databases do you guys run?
So we have more than 10,000 just in Europe.
10,000. Okay.
And spread across high double-digit data centers, let me say like this.
Okay, so the thing that's really unique about Vodafone is your journey to the cloud. And I mentioned earlier, we have this thing called a dedicated region where a company like Vodafone can just have an Oracle public cloud region effectively dedicated to themselves only and running in their data center. So why don't you guys talk about what you're doing and why did you use dedicated regions? What's the attraction?
So first of all, we had for I would say several years already a multi-cloud strategy with the public cloud hyperscalers, also with OCI. And we had one big challenge, which is the modernization of our estate, because we have so many databases. And to accelerate this modernization, we had to think about how can we have a public cloud in our data center having low latency. And for that reason, we decided to build the dedicated regions in our data centers. And we built 6 regions. And that helped us to really lift and shift and upgrade and cloudify Oracle databases in a very quick way without having always the application as well moved. This is a challenge when you move to the public cloud, right, because of the latency aspect.
Yeah, I think that's really an key point, that you were able to modernize all these databases to a modern cloud infrastructure, but your application tiers could stay pretty much untouched because you put these these cloud regions right in your existing data center. Yeah.
Yes.
So you have these 10,000 databases you need to move. So tell us about the process you're going through to figure out which cloud service to use and how to move them. And
so, I mean, as we talk about modernization, and we talk about migration, and what we've been doing, actually partnering with Oracle together, because one thing we realized, like my colleague said, Martin, in terms of complexity and scale, that's a gigantic task which we had in front of us. So what we did, we partnered together with Oracle. We did a massive discovery of our estate, what is as is today. And together with our different local markets, as you can imagine, it's a lot of complexity when you deal with, in total, 19 entities spread across many European countries. So we did from discovery, we identified together with our markets what has the highest business value to our end customers. According to that, we started the modernization process literally together with Oracle, because we put all our bets in a partnership with Oracle, also in terms of execution, which is pretty unique than anything we have done before. And what I can say, after roughly 2 years in a program, we modernized more than 1,600 databases already in the DRCC and in-ground for some very, very critical zero downtime services. What we are basically doing, we modernize first in-ground in our current data centers, and then we migrate into the cloud into the next stage.
And maybe just to add one important thing, which is, I think, was a success criteria also with our Oracle colleagues. When we partnered, we had one rule. We said, we will never talk about contract.
Yeah.
So let's just do it and do it in a different way.
Now, the other thing that's interesting is the way you guys decide, which database goes to autonomous, which goes to Exadata database service, et cetera. How do you do that?
So one big challenge on our side, as Arman mentioned, is the large estate we have, right? And for sure, you can imagine with the scale we have, we had the first strategy, I would say priority zero was decommission first. The second thing, which is an obvious thing, but we found a lot of stuff also which we could decommission. But the second thing is for us autonomous DB as an autonomous first strategy. And why is it? The reason is basically it brings us a lot of automation. It brings us a lot of space to handle all the additional workloads we have to manage because we have a big data flood. And our people should refocus on the different things now because the workload gets more and more. And with having ADB, we reduce the infrastructure work heavily, I would say by 90%, which is a big benefit to us.
Right, so you have this whole thing that you're calling, if not, why not? Which is basically, autonomous database is the first choice, and your app owner has to prove to you why it won't work.
So maybe just to mention, this was our plan initially, straight go to autonomous, then reality kicked in. A lot of resistance from our colleagues in the markets, from the operations teams, and so on and so forth. But as soon as we started literally going through this whole modernization process at scale many times, we realized we forgot what we really wanted to do in parallel, going to this autonomous. And then, actually in London, Oracle World, we met great colleagues from the Oracle side, and then we changed the way we work. Martin, maybe say what we really changed.
Exactly. So what we thought about why we had not so much autonomous DB adoption in the first initial years, but there was also a lot of development happening, and now autonomous is a very solid product. So we asked ourselves why people are not changing, and there are different things. One are that administrators are not changing, the customers are not changing, don't understand, do we need new operating models, what is behind? And I think what we then decided together was what can we do about it, and we did two things. One thing is we had this every weekly, if not, why not session, where each project manager had to explain, and also even the local market, why they're not choosing an autonomous DB as an approach. Sometimes there are things where you say, okay, it's not compatible, it's too legacy, we cannot change something, but a lot of times we just need to do just a few tweaks and we can make it work. And that was a big success, and we see now a big ramp up.
So exactly. What do you think is going to be the ultimate end game? Like what percentage of these 10,000 databases do you think will end up on autonomous through this process?
So minimum 30 to somewhere we are always trying to, based on the learnings. So as we started slow, I would say the lowest 30%, which would equal roughly 3,000. But what we are also doing, maybe to mention, autonomous first when we deploy new databases. Mm-hmm. Because as we do the modernization and migration, we have a lot of demands for new databases to be created. And then with that, we target to
100% new databases go to autonomous.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. Sure. Cool. One last thing I wanted to ask you about is like you heard about all the multi-cloud announcements. Does Vodafone have any idea about that?
Yeah, so consider we had this multi-cloud strategy, and as I said, we utilize, depending on features and products, the different hyperscalers. Now, the great thing, the thing you are doing, is basically you set up something which is complementary to these vendors. And one important thing is you need to keep ecosystems together. And we see that when you have Microsoft workloads in Azure, or inside Google now in GCP, the new services, the ADB service, to have it there, and the XRCS service is great and helps us really to deploy things locally in this cloud, very close to it with low latency, which is much better instead of having two clouds talking the whole time.
Yeah, I think a lot of the customers like this idea of like, well, in Azure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these applications that were built in the Microsoft tech stack, with .NET or whatever, and those applications might as well run on Azure, and then as long as they're there, let's put the database there too, kind of thing. And
Indeed.
So there's a lot of that kind of thinking I'm seeing with customers. Yeah. Cool. It's very exciting. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. So that's really exciting. I mean, I think they're like one of the most exciting database cloud customers we have today. Big, mission-critical telco systems, all going to our cloud in these dedicated regions, and some going to probably the Azure cloud, Oracle database at Azure as well. Okay. Now what I want to do is sort of start talking about some of the new stuff we're working on. And last year, in Autonomous Database, we started playing with large language models and starting to look at like what can we do to leverage this really cool technology. And the first thing, of course, we're database guys, and so the first thing we thought about was like, okay, how can we use this technology to generate SQL statements, so that people can actually, talk to the large language model in their natural language, tell it what data you want, and have it generate the SQL for you. And so this was a really fun exercise for us in development, because you get to play with this really cool bleeding edge technology, and you get to find out what works and doesn't work. As you start doing this stuff, you find out, well, you can't just talk to it and get it to generate SQL. What it needs to know is information about your database data. It needs to know metadata. And so for a long time, in the relational databases, people create schemas, and they usually have these column names that mean something, some sort of descriptive. And then some people start, we have the ability to give us comments on the schema data. And then in 23AI, we're adding a whole bunch of ways you can add even more additional metadata. And it turns out this is the key. If you want large language models to be able to generate SQL against your data, you need to give it all the metadata possible. And so, this is not a real surprise, but basically when we give these prompts to the large language models, we are giving it in the prompt all the metadata we have that you've given us about your data. And the more you give us, the better results we're seeing. These large language models are really incredible. So in Autonomous Database, we have this feature called Select AI, which, by the way, we are going to make available via all of our Oracle database instances on-prem and in the cloud. And we integrate with any large language model of your choice. So let's say you're on Azure, you have this big deal to use lots of OpenAI on Azure, ChatGPT, et cetera. We can interface with that. We can interface with the Llama models that Meta has. Google has their models. So we're trying to go down this path of being open to let you select your large language model. We think this is the right approach. These large language models are incredibly good. You don't need a special large language model to generate SQL. All these guys are in a heated competition to be the best at generating code. So we think this, again, this is the right approach. Trying to create a large language model just for Oracle database customers doesn't make a lot of sense. It takes billions of dollars to train these models. So we think the right approach that we're using here is we're going to make things open. You guys can have your large language model of choice, and we will call out to it. Okay. The other new thing we're working on that we just rolled out with Select AI is something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So the cool thing we're doing here is, the large language models have been trained on all the data in the internet. It's all public information. Well, those schemas you have in your proprietary databases are not on the internet. You keep a lot of that stuff tightly controlled. No large language model has ever seen it before. The data in your databases is also tightly controlled. So for example, at Oracle, we have all this customer support data dating back to the 1980s, with all the support calls customers have issued, what were the resolutions of those calls, what's the diagnostic data, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to unlock that information to your large language model, what you need to do is first have a process where you look up the information in your databases and use what we call AI vector search to help you do that. And you get the data back. So for example, in Oracle's customer support example, we will take the question that the user brought in. We'll use something called a vector embedding on the text of that question. And then we'll use that to look up all the support history for any SRs or bugs that match, using AI vector search, that match what that request is. And then we'll take the results back from that, and when we send the prompt to the large language model, we'll send it the question about the data you asked, but then we'll also send all the metadata we have about the data in question. We'll send all the results from this query against the internal support systems also to the large language model. So now it has the benefit of all this internet searching it's done, plus all the information that's secret, that's confidential within your organization, and it can give you a great result that way. And that's what RAG is called. And so what we're going to do now is bring out Tim Klein. And Tim is going to give you a demo of some of the Select AI technology we have and how we expose it in the Autonomous Database Service. So Tim, come on out. There you go.
How you doing, Andy? Thank you. Hi. All right. Good morning, everybody. Bear with me 1 second here. All right. The Oracle Autonomous Database at Azure. The offering is really unbelievable because it's letting our customers build new solutions or modernize their existing workloads, taking the advantage of the best from Oracle and Microsoft. So what I'm going to do now is showcase 3 key items in the demonstration. So let's get started. So now we're logged into Microsoft Azure, and we're going to deploy an Oracle Autonomous Database. So we're going to create right here, and you'll notice we're going to assign a resource group, followed by an instance name and your deployed region. From there, you're going to be asked a couple of questions. What's the workload type? Is it a warehouse? Is it OLTP? In this case, we're going to do transaction processing. Furthermore, you can select the database version, as well as the compute and your storage resources. Next, you can adjust your security backup retention policy, followed by your username and password for the database. From there, you select your actual virtual private network. And shortly, in a few minutes, you will have a working Oracle Autonomous Database in Microsoft Azure. There, we'll actually be able to log into the console in Azure, and you can see all of your database metrics and metadata. But we didn't stop there. We actually included the OCI look and feel, as well as all the tools that a lot of the folks are comfortable with. So now you have scheduling, machine learning, data studio, but also we provide the deep level of metrics and SQL monitoring so you can see where your queries and performance is happening. So now we're going to transition to how do we create an AI profile? Well, this was a typical query. You'd have to write the select statement, you knew where the data is, and how to write that query. But now, here's the new way. You're going to create an AI profile. In this case here, you're seeing Microsoft Azure. We're using the OpenAI GPT-4, and we're going to be passing in a list of objects, tables and views, or JSON collections that you will be feeding to the large language model to translate that to SQL. Now, it's a very simple, select AI, and ask your question in your native language. So what are our total streams? You execute the query. Or maybe we want to break this down further and by customers or genres. Follow your train of thought, ask the question, and hit return. Or maybe we want to go a step further. Maybe I want to get into breaking this down into advanced analytics or SQL analytics. Maybe I want to take my last or my top 5 answers, and then I want to do a rank on that. Again, follow your train of thought and execute the query. Okay. So now we're going to transition to a sample application that was built in no time. We were using Oracle Apex, and literally we used that same AI profile you just saw us create. And now we're chatting with our data live. So we're passing in the parameters from the user in that text box, either from microphone or the keyboard, and we're issuing that information to Microsoft Azure large language model. Furthermore, you can use all the great tools that Apex provides. You can download, you can use your mobile devices, the web, and share that information. But you notice it also supports multiple languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Chinese. So basically, use any language that you're comfortable with. In conclusion, the combined strength of Oracle and Microsoft is revolutionizing data management. With generative development and natural language understanding, we're going to offer businesses unmatched opportunities to improve, scale, and excel. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Okay, so with that, I'm going to close with a few thoughts on 23AI. And of course, that's the big new version of the database released last year on the cloud. We're rolling it out now on-prem. We have it on-prem now, available to the Exadata systems, database appliance customers, and we expect to roll it out everywhere real soon. This is our latest long-term support release. It's going to be supported, the usual 8+ years, and got a lot of new capability in it. We are solving some really fundamental issues that customers have had for years and years. We have this great technology called JSON Relational Duality views that lets you essentially build object relational mapping right in the database for those your developers who want to see data as JSON documents. We've got this, of course, property graph right in the database, so your developers can, again, take standard relational schemas and put a graph view on it, a JSON view on it. And so we sort of unify all those worlds together. You heard from New York Stock Exchange. They're very interested in true cache. This, again, solves one of the long-standing problems people have had out there. They try to put caches in front of the database, but these caches are all out of sync with the data in the back end. True cache is a real, fully synced cache that we've built that's basically, think of it as an extended buffer cache between the application and the database. So it's always consistent, just like an Oracle buffer cache is consistent. We've moved the notion of a SQL firewall that had been running on the network. We've moved that right into the database itself now. So when it was on the network, things like SQL issued from stored procedures didn't pass through the firewall. So you had a sort of a loophole there. Now that we're in the database server, we can see all the SQL. We can block anything that you don't want to come into your app. So anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff. Plus, we got all the AI technologies as well. We don't have a lot of time left, so I'll just very quickly go through some of this. AI vector search lets you do similarity search. It's taking advantage of 30, 40 years of AI research. It has now come down to this ability to take an unstructured document or image, video, whatever, and reduce it down to a vector of like 1,000 dimensions. These are just like a vector of floating point numbers or integers, right? And we now have the ability in the database in 23AI to store these vectors in your standard relational tables that you have today. You just add a vector column. You use these AI embedding models that have been developed, like I said, over the last 30, 40 years to take this unstructured data and reduce it to a vector. So we just call those models. We can actually run those embedding models right in the database itself. So we let you import those models into the database from your favorite supplier. And then we, in SQL, make it really easy to just add a predicate to the where clause that says, find in image, a photo in the database that looks like this, or what is this, find people who are unhappy with our service, things of that sort. So this is a really powerful technology. You don't need data scientists anymore. They've already done the heavy lifting over the last 40 years to create these embeddings for you. So anybody who knows SQL now can learn in 10, 15 minutes how to add these sophisticated AI vector search capabilities into your existing operational databases of any sort. You don't need to move data. Again, people are telling you, move your data to a vector database and do your searching there. Again, it's like, why do you want to do that? We've converged that technology right into the Oracle database. You can very easily extend your existing applications with this technology. Okay. And we have some example use cases here. I'll skip that. I talked about the JSON duality views, this whole unification of JSON, graph, and relational model together. Again, this is something people have been trying to do for years and years. We think we finally cracked the case on how to do object relational mapping, where objects are now JSON documents. That's what a lot of developers want to use. Into the relational database as well. And you get the benefits that you can still run SQL queries that do powerful analytics and 100-way joins against the standard relational schema. And for developers that just want a JSON document back, you can now create these views, and the developers can easily get and put the data from the JSON document, and These views are fully updatable. We will, under the covers, take the data, the document sent back, and we will send all the updates, the right tables in the relational schema underlying these views, and really solve a problem that people have been sort of baffled with for a long time, is like, how do you do object relational mapping? Okay. Property graph views, again, you heard from, well, we're going to hear from one last customer. And they're going to talk a little bit about what they're doing with property graph views. So let's get to them fast. So we're going to call out Oscar Mullen from Mercado Libre. Hey, Oscar. So why don't you first explain, like, who is Mercado Libre? Because I doubt anybody in this audience has heard of it.
So Mercado Libre was founded 25 years ago in Argentina with a mission of democratizing the access to commerce and financial solutions in the region. If we fast forward 25 years, we are now the largest e-commerce and fintech company in Latin America. We're very proud that every month, over 100 million users from 18 different countries use our platform to run their businesses and so on. Actually, we're also very proud that our 25th birthday marked an important milestone. We became the most valuable company in Latin America with a market cap of over $100 billion. Today, we also think that technology is something that will make our business grow and keep us scaling. That's why we have, out of our 75,000 engineers, 75,000 employees, 20,000 of them are actually engineering roles. So we have a very large technological landscape, and we have a very large tech team. And we use a multi-cloud approach in which all of our technology is running in different clouds.
Right, so let's focus in on Oracle Cloud. So what are you doing with Oracle Cloud?
In Oracle Cloud, well, we have been using Oracle for a very, very long time, since the beginning of our organization. But most recently, we started thinking about using this conversion database approach. We really think that's a place where we want to be. We really like the idea. One of the key use cases we have is fraud detection and fraud prevention, right? So we need to make sure that our users are protected against fraudulent activities. Part of that, for that, you need graphs, right? You need to make sure that actually you can check if a device that belongs to a user with a given credit card in a given geolocation actually is of that user. So we have a very large graph database use case that we were using in a different cloud provider, but we were having scalability issues as well as cost issues. So we actually moved to ADB to use graphs. We have about 3 billion nodes and 5 billion edges, and more than 1 million requests per minute. And after we migrated to ADB, we actually see a 50% reduction in latency with a one-digit millisecond. And also, we saw a 60% reduction in cost. So that's a big change for us.
That's very exciting. Any closing comments?
We are looking forward to use 23 AI as well. We have very large use cases in production right now to use RAG and also semantic searches, and we think that this could be something we can explore.
So you're looking at 23 AI, vector AI search.
Exactly, yes.
Great. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's finish this off. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the last few slides, I just want to do a pitch for what you're going to hear about at 4 o'clock if you go to Juan Luis's keynote. We are very focused now on trying to leverage generative AI to make it really easy to build database-oriented applications. The key tool we're going to use there is Apex. Apex is this low-code tool that's been out there for years. In Apex 24.1 that we just shipped earlier this year, we have the initial beginnings of using large language models to generate not only SQL, but also generate the applications themselves. So you can go to Apex, and in Juan's keynote, you see it. You can talk to it, tell it what kind of screens you want, and it'll start generating that kind of stuff for you using large language models. Let's go on. So, this is our big vision for the future. We want you to just talk to the large language models via our apps, say what it is you want, and we're going to generate the app for you. And of course, the generation is going to be iterative. We'll generate something, you can look at it, you can edit it, you can change it, you can tell the AI you want something different, you want something more. So it's going to be a very productive, interactive experience. Okay. And these are the big components of what we're using to deliver on the vision. The AI vector search capability right in the database itself. Things like JSON, relational duality views, property graphs are all part of it. The select AI technology for generating SQL is there, Apex there. And of course, autonomous database is the key foundation that we're using here. But like I said, this technology ultimately can run on-prem as well. So we'll see if we can do that as well. So definitely all of you at 4 o'clock, if you want to see this technology in action, Juan is going to show demos of us showing you how we are in sort of the phase 1 of delivering on this technology to make it easy for you to use generative AI to generate database applications real easily. So with that, I will close and just remind you what we talked about. We talked about our vision here, make it easy to generate and run modern applications using our technology. We talked a lot about autonomous database and converged database technologies. We talked about our new multi-cloud partnership. We had a lot of customers who got to say, yeah, when Andy's talking about it actually works, we're using it. So that was cool. And we talked a little bit at the end about generative AI and 23 AI features. And with that, thanks for coming, and see you next year.